and everything is happening for you, not to you. And that's one of my favorite things about this whole like expectations. And you were saying earlier, Jesse, like everything is perspective. It is all in our mind. The only thing we can actually control is our attitude in this whole world. That's it. Breathing, do some breathwork exercises, and the attitude. And if you choose to look at a certain event as suffering and misery, then that's what it's going to be for you. If you choose to look at it as like, wow, that was unexpected, I feel sadness and sorrow, let me give myself some time, and then I'm going to realize this is making me stronger.
Hello and welcome back. I think we're on our third iteration of the potential name for this podcast. I think this, or at least a version like it, was also recommended by a viewer on our channel, High Vibes Vilca. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments if you like that title or that name for this podcast. Welcome back. Well, welcome back to all of us. Welcome back to Chiyoko. Just got back from a little trip to the States. I'm sure she'll have stuff to share.
Oh, I have much to say. Yes.
That relates to everything we talk about from there. Thank you all for tuning in. Please put a like on the video. We'd love to have you subscribe to the channel and also share this video with your friends if you get value out of it. So welcome back. We're going to talk a little bit this week about expectations and what that means for one's life, whether it's, being an expat in a foreign country like Ecuador, whether it's your spiritual life, how it sort of ties into happiness and your overall experience in the world. So that's today's topic. If you guys have topics you'd like us to cover, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Please let us know any thoughts you have and any topics you'd like covered in the future. So again, thanks for tuning in. And we'll jump right into it. So I guess for me, I remember my dad telling me as a child about, he's kind of a Buddhist, and that's sort of his philosophy comes out of that school of thought. And I remember him like giving me that concept of, or maybe I even heard a Buddhist talking about it. That wasn't him. I don't recall, but giving me that concept. There's some kind of phrase that's like which I'll butcher now, but there's some kind of phrase that's something to do with the gap between expectations and reality is the gap of how unhappy you are, basically. Do you know the phrase?
I do. Not exactly the wording of it, but the concept of what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. That's like it in a nutshell. It's where all of our suffering.
All right. So you don't have is the suffering. It uses that word. Do you have a better way to say it?
Let's stick with what you said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the cause of all suffering, right? The root of all suffering basically is the gap between expectations and reality, which of course then immediately leads, to the logical conclusion that, well, hey, if you drop expectations, you'll be happy, or at least suffer less or relieve suffering, which of course then is, much easier said than done. And I think part of the reason why people spend their lives breathing and meditating and doing various spiritual practices, at least from that school of thought, potentially in part is to resolve that conundrum. Because I think, at least for myself, I think it's accurate, number one. I think that is, when I get upset or frustrated because something didn't go my way or isn't how I wanted, it quite literally is the difference between how I wanted something to be and how it actually is. Which then of course also ties into, and I think this was actually the concept my dad was sharing with me, but ties into, putting value judgments on phenomena, like on experiences. Because at the end of the day, from the highest perspective, or at least a high perspective, it's just phenomena. Like that's all that's taking place, life, right? Our everyday experiences. It's just stuff that's happening. It's up to us what we do with that. If we say this is good, this is bad, this is fun, this sucks, this I like this, I don't like that, those are choices. I mean, they truly are choices, which it doesn't seem like that necessarily, especially when you're younger and you have no concept of that. It seems very cut and dry what's good and what's bad, but truthfully, I think there isn't any good or bad, which I think it's a very kind of similar concept to the expectations versus reality one. But yeah, where do you guys want to take it from here?
Ooh-wee. I love this topic. Do you have any thoughts you want to share?
I think I agree with Jessie that this is like the main problem, and it was a big thing that I need to learn for myself growing up, like the very typical idea that when we grow up is like we're princes, we're gonna find our prince, and we'll be happy forever.
Well, that's what happened, though. I don't know.
Yes is the answer. Yes is
the
the
reaction
answer.
out of Chiyoko might have been the best part of that. But
Good. Cool.
So like growing up, I noticed about that. I didn't notice when I was young about it. Like that's what I was trying to look for. Oh, the perfect relationship and stuff like that. And because I never thought that couples had problems at all, because that's not what you see. No, the difference. I mean, I believe now that it makes sense when you try to put two universe merged together. It's gonna be complicated no matter what. So I believe that for us as the girls, I don't know about the boys, but the girls is a very common idea that they put in their head that they're gonna. It's like, I don't know the expression in English, but in Spanish is comieron felices y okay.
Like it's all easy or it's all happy.
Yeah,
something like that. Like it should all be easy.
Yes. We have an expression like that in Spanish, and it's like it's not true, not at all. So that's the biggest expectation that I had to let go and understand that every single person that is close to you is just gonna bring up all your shadows. And so right now I use that as my strength when I have feeling these emotions towards other people. It's like where inside of me this is part of me. So no, I mean, I think going deeper is very, very healing for me.
Well, and you do a good job. Like you do a better job than I do of not being frustrated with stuff that comes up. How do you do that? Is that something that you've worked at? Like, do you have techniques, or do you have anything to share about that?
I'll second that, by the way. You really do. So please do share, and I'm going to take notes.
No, yeah, I actually think that it's kind of weird that, well, things don't go good. It's just, and I was not always like that. Maybe I learned this at some point, and it's very easy for me to like switch. Like, okay, this is not good. This doesn't work. Let's try something else. So when I find that something else works, I'm like, it's okay to just let go the expectation more than anything. So no, like it is what it is, and how it is perfect. That's how I think. And if even if it's painful, it's trying to teach you something, no? So I every time I go through that, little by little, I got to the point that I'm like, it's true that when I see like it's not a big deal, like, it's okay, like we'll go through it. Like I see that like sometimes you're like, for you it's very hard how you can go through that wall, but it's more than anything, I think, the mind that is kind of controlling you, and it's kind of like it's part of your ego, your personality, and it's very hard to let go who you are. So you've been growing up with that personality for your whole life. How can you let go? That is really hard. For me, when I was growing up, I didn't really have a lot of choice. I didn't have a lot of options, opportunities.
That's what I was just wondering. Whatever childhood experiences that probably influenced you a lot. Specifically you, I'm talking about. For all of us, yes, but like, yeah, how do you think that influenced some of your? I think you're very even keel when things totally don't go the way that you want them to.
Yeah.
And I want to hear your answer, but just sort of an FYI too for you, Chiyoko, which is kind of partly why I asked the question. Like she's that way now, not a couple years ago.
Interesting. So and I have that sense, but I've only known you, I think, since you've been like that, actually.
Right,
so for 1 year, I've known you for 1 year. So please, continue.
No, I mean,
Interesting.
so it makes sense now that I'm bringing it up. Like for when I was little, I didn't had control at all ever of like whatever it is. I'm just gonna accept whatever it is. So probably it helped me because that was already set in my program. Yeah.
I wonder if there's a point in life, you, Ide, or any of us, I know for me, where we get this, maybe it's a rude awakening. I'll speak for myself as an adult, where it goes so wrong to how you expected it to go and how you wanted it to go and how you've been working so hard for it to go that is completely out of your control. And for me, it forced me to actually surrender and let go, because I realized like my world crashed down on me and it was beyond my control. Like there was no righting the ship, and I kind of just had to let the wave crash the ship. And I knew I wasn't going to physically die. I wasn't in a war zone, but for my somewhat, handcrafted, perfected life I worked so hard in New York for, it got ripped out from underneath me because I shifted and I changed. And so to have this release of like expectation, just knowing, if anyone's ever surfed before, sometimes like you're going to wipe out, and it's like you just got to surrender. If you try to still hang on, you'll get really hurt. You have to just let the wave completely take you. And I think, I don't know, Isaiah, if maybe they're for you, but I know for me, like there was a certain moment, and it's happened a couple times in life, like more than once. And maybe that'll be my next point about evolution. Like we need to be challenged by these things in order to grow. That's what evolution is. But I think without my own personal world being completely destabilized, I wouldn't have chosen to learn the lesson of letting go and having non-attachment and releasing my expectations of things. I would have just kept having high expectations and kept wanting to achieve like my little list of, all right, here's the next 50 things I'm going to do in the next 5 years, and just kept following. I mean, unless people are forced to adapt, you just stay how you are. And there's so many topics, like you guys are touching on amazing stuff. And I think one of the other things for me is like when you actually do let go of what you were expecting and wanting and thinking, like, I got the formula, I know the steps, I'm going to do it. Sometimes the most phenomenal things come into your life that you never would have chosen to happen. You never would have allowed that to come in, because whatever, the forces that be, God, the universe, had to take it away. And sometimes it's like a ripping of something away from your life. And I can speak to, a marriage, in my late 20s, where I didn't expect that to happen. Like I expected to be married for life to this person at 29. 3 years later, it was done. Like we were so not the right people for the long haul. And all the things that have come into my life since then, oh my gosh, never would have. So in this sort of maybe Buddhist way, it's like I could either make that radical suffering because I'm in such pain that what I expected was this marriage to be forever didn't happen, and spend years upon years in pain and wallowing and suffering and misery of failure. Or eventually you just shake it off and you realize life is going to go on. You're going to be okay. You'll figure it out. And everything is happening for you, not to you. And that's one of my favorite things about this whole like expectations. And you were saying earlier, Jesse, like everything is perspective. It is all in our mind. The only thing we can actually control is our attitude in this whole world. That's it. Breathing, do some breathwork exercises, and the attitude. And if you choose to look at a certain event as suffering and misery, then that's what it's going to be for you. If you choose to look at it as like, wow, that was unexpected, I feel sadness and sorrow, let me give myself some time, and then I'm going to realize this is making me stronger, and I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, and I'm going to somehow be a better version of myself. I don't know what that version is. Not married to person X, here in Vilcabamba. And this is in 2012, I got divorced. That's a long time ago, like over 10 years. And so the things that came in, I won't go into the multiple timelines of multiple possibilities. We'll save that for another topic. But in a way, it's like, I think if my life had continued with that person, well, then there would have been lessons I would have kept learning, and I would have gotten benefit somehow. I do think eventually we would have ended up parting ways. But because we did it when we were relatively young at 32, what was probably one of the most traumatic events to happen to me actually ended up being one of the most phenomenally supportive of my next steps. And I know for him as well. I know for him for sure. Like we have mutual friends still. And it's a shift in the expectation to let go of that is huge.
Yeah, and so a lot of that stuff too, right? It really gets into like the law of attraction stuff, which we have a previous episode on.
Yep.
You know, if anyone has spent any time listening to like Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks,
Yeah.
it's like all about what you just described, right? Sort of the attitude towards the phenomena, the events that take place, which is sort of the attitude you're describing. And you know, I've been impressed knowing you for the short time I have, but I've been impressed by your capacity to stay positive for the most part, right? Like your capacity to stay kind of open to what comes and in a pretty good vibe, right? Whereas like I'll go down some dark, you know, pathways in my mind pretty easily, and then I'll have to work to get out of that. And it's like going back to something you were saying earlier, Ida, I think the degree to which we hold on to outcomes and expectations and therefore suffer when they don't come. You use the word ego, like it's directly tied to our self-identity, which essentially is ego, right? So it's like I play basketball a couple of days a week here in Vilcabamba, and there's actually like a really good group of good hoopers who played at a relatively high level, and it's a lot of fun. I really want to win, right? Like I care about winning. I'm not a sore loser at all. I don't have any problem with losing, but it matters to me. It's important for me, right? To play well and to win. And if I'm just using this as an example, but if I think about it, if I like think it through, it has something to do with my self-identity, right? It's like somehow at an early age, I identified with sports, that I'm athletic, that I'm good at sports, that I have success and accomplish things through athletic achievements and through sports. And now I'm competing, you know, 40 years old. We're screwing around half court in Vilcabamba. And it matters to me. And I think, you know, I really think it's because if I don't live up to my expectations of how I should play, how I should be able to play and to, you know, succeed in athletics, then it's like there's some piece of my identity that would take a hit, you know, that would. So it's almost like a survival thing, right? All of these things.
Yes,
it's almost
yes.
it's almost like this is who I am, you know. I beat you at this game like that, you know. And but it's interesting because it's like I think the harder it is for us to let go of those expectations and just view it all as phenomena is very likely to the degree to which it's tied to our self-identity, aka ego.
It's funny that you brought that up because it rings me a bell of me. I don't have that competitive thing. I'm always like no, well, that's
we'll get your side of the story in a moment. Please continue, Ida. Yes,
that's how I identify myself, and it's super funny how life works. And maybe you can recall this. Like we have like this board game that we like to play at home.
That was my example, thinking of your competitiveness.
Yeah, exactly. No, so for example,
This is Katan for those.
That can be fierce. I know. You guys play Katan?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah,
oh my gosh. Okay, I have things to do. Yeah. Continue.
So I'm always trying to I don't try to win personally. Like I'm trying to have fun. That's the point of mine. And somehow I won most of the time, but it's not that I'm trying. But Jesse's really good at this game, so he gets really frustrated when he's not winning. I'm like, so sometimes like, shoot, I don't want to win because I don't want to make other people unhappy. But like, even if I am like in a bad spot and then I'm winning, I'm like, how? So what is the universe behind trying to show to us? Because like I don't care and I win and he cares and he loses. What the heck is going on? So yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like I think we have different traits that we have to find a balance. So like that you have to teach me to competitive more, and I have to teach you to less. Do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I find that there is this, and we are similar in a lot of things. That's the thing I don't understand. No, about like the polos opuestos se atraen. I don't know how
Yeah,
you say
opposite poles.
opposites get attracted,
Yeah.
and then the same they get rejected. So, but still, there are similar things that we're very similar, but there is other ones that we are not at all. That I take in consideration, like maybe I should be that a little more of that. Like, so I try to just flow, like whatever. Like if there is something that is uncomfortable, work on it. Like do some changes in life to like be out of your comfort zone. So that's the only way.
I want to talk about the Katan for a second because it's a great metaphor. It's a great
On a scale of 1 to 10, how pissed do you get when she wins without trying and you're actually trying?
He will sleep in the couch.
So first of all, I second everything you said. So that's the accurate story. And what's been fascinating. So there's two things for me that are fascinating about watching the Katan. And the Katan is more my daughter likes to play, who just turned 15. I honestly don't thoroughly enjoy it anymore at this point. It's just such a anyways. So but my daughter likes to play. So sometimes at night we'll play a game. And so truthfully would kind of prefer not to win and doesn't put any stake in it at all. And it's very much a great example of that sort of law of attraction thing that everybody talks about, where if you don't care, if you just let it be, then the universe will kind of reward that thing, and you just kind of, oh, cool, and keep moving. They always tell you that lesson. Like, I'm watching this firsthand with her.
She's just giving her sheep away to other people.
And then, kind of, at least attitudinally, if that's a word. But, and then in my case, right, I'll get into a negative funk in my head before the game even starts, and it'll be the exact lesson in terms of we are master creators and we receive back what we give. It's like an instant lesson in that, where it's like my negative stuff will already I'll go into the game knowing I can't win. Right? Because I just know I'm already tired. I'm in a bad mood. I just want to go to bed. And I'm and I'm grumpy. And and then I've noticed, oh, okay, the universe is actually trying to teach me a lesson here. Let me actually put some effort into staying positive and in being nice and enjoying the game and not just being a curmudgeon. And the first time I did, the other thing that for me it too is intuition. It's trying to teach me intuition. I actually always know when I'm supposed to give a card away, when I'm supposed to do this, when I'm supposed to do that. But I ignore my intuition. And so God is like, all right, you're going to lose now because you're not getting the lessons, dumbass, in the first game that I actually was like, all right, let me pay attention to these things. I won that. That was the first game I had won in months, basically. Yeah. Anyways, it's interesting.
Yeah, there is, and I know it feels like we're touching upon some of the same themes, but it's all connected. That's what it really is. And it's like this about our attitude and expectations. And sometimes when you just let go of okay, I expect to win, I should win, maybe because you're more skilled or whatever it is, and you really surrender to just the fun and the spirit and the play of it, I think so much will flow in life that way. And it is a hard thing to do. And we're giving the example of a board game, which is so interesting because this is a commonly known thing. Families that get together, maybe it's Thanksgiving and all the families at the house and they play Monopoly. There could be borderline fistfights that break out in family Monopoly. People end up not speaking to each other for the rest of the night, between the parents level and the kids level and the generational thing, the grandkids, because it brings out, it's a make-believe game, but it's an example. It's a petri dish, microcosm reflection of the whole. It's a hologram of really what are our strengths and weaknesses? How do we actually want to be perceived by others? And really it's winning. And I mean this in being serious. It brings out the kind of primal survival skill set in us. And we are wired with still the Neanderthal brain wiring, right? We all know this. Our whole nervous system, our whole brain chemistry hasn't actually evolved very much in tens of thousands of years. We actually haven't evolved our biological makeup, but we've evolved the world that we live in, the technology we have access to, the knowledge that we have, the universal connection to information that's around this planet. So we're kind of short-circuited in the way that we exist. And so something primal really comes out when we're doing this. I just got distracted for a second. Something primal comes out when we're playing this game of survival mode.
Yeah, totally.
And even though like you probably shouldn't pick on the 10-year-old who's just trying to get the sheep for Katan, but it's like something comes out in the grandpa, and the grandpa's like, "You're cheating, son!" And it's like this drama over the board game. It's like, well, so the 10-year-old was cheating, whatever. The grandpa needs to get in there, and so it kind of exaggerates all of our personality quirks, which is really intense. And maybe the story is kind of like, how can we actually let ourselves lose and be graceful about it? Let ourselves surrender to like, it didn't go our way and lessen the expectation. If we struggle doing that in a board game, it's really hard to do that in life, especially in business. Like we can even shift into that for a second. If you're a founder of a company, or you're working on a big team, or you're a mom with a kid and you feel like that whole child's, experience of life and who they end up is resting on your shoulders, it's really difficult to say, well, just let go of any expectation of how your company does or how your kids turn out. That's not possible, number one. Number two, it's not what we're actually saying. So maybe we talk about, well, what are we actually saying then if I'm right here, because I know you guys. I mean, Jesse, we've talked about this, like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just like let go of the whole company? Like, and I've been there too in so many businesses, and I don't have kids myself, but I've seen the pressures that moms and dads are under, and a lot of it's self-created. And I think for really like honest reason, because they want their kids to be well. When our precious hearts desire for outcomes that are in our highest good and those that we care about in their highest good, man, is it hard to say, well, don't have any expectation of outcome. Like, what? I mean, I got a lot to say, but I'm sure you guys can add on to that.
Yeah.
Well, more than anything, I just want to bring up that, like, I think like every single situation in our life, in my opinion, is spiritual. It can be like a Katan game, it can be like a single walk, but every single movement, thought is spiritual. Like, you don't know the meaning of it right now, but years later, when you go through some kind of awakening period, you'll see everything like, oh my God, and you'll notice that everything is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very evolved perspective, right? To be able to let go of the identity and the expectation and actually conquer that in a serious way is quite an evolved capacity in my opinion. And it's interesting to talk about that in juxtaposition to what you mentioned a second ago, Chiyoko, of the sort of born with traits, naturally instilled or ingrained traits of fight for what's mine, scarcity, like survival basically.
Yeah.
I watch my 2 and my 4-year-old. They're really love each other. They're very kind to each other in many ways. The 4-year-old really looks out for the 2-year-old, and they will fight over an apple like you wouldn't imagine, right? They have that. They're very like wired, and they have that ingrained sort of primal perspective that there might not be enough of this thing. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes there's only one banana left. And they don't want to share it with each other. The 4-year-old will share now with the 2-year-old if he understands it. But the 2-year-old, I mean, he wants that banana for himself, and he will go to war over it. It's really interesting to look at that. And I think if I were to put that in perspective of sort of, because it's like the human is born, right? And then they have developmental phases, where to a certain age they're developing this capacity and this cognitive ability, all that kind of stuff, and then that keeps evolving as the human gets older, hopefully, right, if people don't cap themselves through other means. But I think our planet and our species also has a similar pattern where we're in this time now where I think massive evolution is taking place and also needs to be taking place. So it's very much a shift from that sort of reptilian brain, primal survival thinking, which of course we still need to have access to, into a much more sort of looking out for one another and sort of cooperating. And, I hesitate to use the word greater good because it's got all kinds of weird connotations and ones that I don't agree with at all, but sort of to that greater good in some way, mentality as our kind of higher elements and our higher capacities and our higher sort of directions kind of come online during this time. So, yeah, it's which again, right? To get there, I think we have to like drop identity to a large degree and work through the shadows and work on drop the ego as much as possible and all those kinds of things.
I have so much to say. Can I just jump right in,
Please.
right off of that? If we spent, as a collective species, and myself too, and I've had this thought and I didn't make it up, I heard it from someone else. If we all spent as much time and effort and dedication working on ourselves and what you were just talking about as we did for our careers, especially in a very classic like business sense, the amount of time and effort we put into like work and making money and getting the social status to buy all the shit that you don't actually need and doesn't really make you happy. If we spent that on ourselves, which I know the three of us who've talked about this a lot, like we've done so much self-development work, like we've read so much, we've done workshops, and Ida, you're newer to the journey and you've shared like your path the past, just over a year. The amount of time and effort you've spent that I've watched you spend on yourself and invest in yourself to be in the place that you're in right now, because I didn't know you a year ago. If everybody did that in their own right way, in their own time, I know many people are, but I know many people aren't. Or maybe they're doing a little. And it might be because they aren't really exposed to it. They don't have this, immediate capacity or understanding or awareness, or their friends aren't doing it. They're not meditating. They're not in these sort of spiritual conversations. And it's an interesting place because I don't judge it as like, oh, they're bad and we're better. It feels
That's
a little bit exactly. But it's like what comes up for me to be an observation of like, well, why isn't that happening? And so I dedicate a lot of my life to, all right, I have a lot of tools and things to share that can help people on their journey in their way if they want to. How can I share them with others? And how can people kind of be on their own path for this, their own self-development evolution? And evolution truly to evolve, it only happens when we're challenged. It only happens with the rub. It's like what I was saying before, the stagnation. If you just stay the same, nothing evolves. And it's often through this like fire, as we might call it in our spiritual speak, like you go through the fire of life, trauma happens, expectations are not met, and we have to be forced to adapt. And even to face our own wounds and our own shadows, we have to be kind of force ourselves and work on it because it's not easy. To sit in plant medicine ceremony, that's not easy. To go on a silent retreat for X number of days, that is not easy. To read these books instead of watching YouTube or whatever, Netflix series, it takes work and it takes effort. And I feel like you're saying, Jesse, the only way, and I know there's a big part of us that feel this, and it's a little bit kind of what the new age movement is, which I don't even really know exactly what new age exactly means. We can talk about that. The only way through is together. The only way that we're going to get humanity on a track that supports a future that is sustainable and beautiful and joyful for all is coming together and helping each other. And it's not sticking to our primal wiring. So for me, it's kind of like balancing the middle way. How do we honor our primal Neanderthal, lizard brain selves, where it's like scarcity mindset, fear, protection mode, and also compassion for others, generosity, give more. Like whenever you think you don't have anything to give, that's when you give a little bit more, and that's how it comes back to you in full force. And can we balance that? And I don't think any of us have like exactly the right formula, because it's a really complex world that we live in. There's so many, but what about this that comes up? Well, what about that guy who's obviously out to screw you over? Like, we're not going to be generous to him. Well, you know what? Be generous in your prayers to him and your compassion and your dedication that he finds a path where he's happier and he's not screwing people over, because he's coming out of fear and scarcity to do that. It's a very tricky game. And I think the more we can play with this as community, this is what a lot of us are doing in Vilcabamba, is why we're here. It makes me feel good to participate in this and watch myself grow, because I've had my triggers and my things come up here in the past year. And I'm a different person than I was before I got here. And these challenges have helped evolve me. So in a way, full circle, it's all happening for me.
Yeah. No, yeah, we all have the trigger, so no worries at all. I think that there is something that I have learned is like everyone is in the right path for themselves. No matter if if we think they are not evolved enough or whatever, like whatever they are, that's perfect. That's where they're supposed to be, because yeah, that they program their life that way, their challenges that way. But is it not true that most of the people are always trying to look for their comfort zone? So, for example, what you're trying to do when you're looking at on a partner to be how you want it, or to have a work to have it what you want. We are always are looking to be in the comfort zone instead of like getting out of that comfort zone and appreciating what it brings us, what we learn from it. So I think that's that's a big one for me, not to get involved into someone else's life, because it's not my place. We are wired a different way. So what it worked for me might not work for them. So whatever choice that we think is the right for them, it has nothing to do with them. It's just we can only do the best for ourselves, and we're doing a lot. Because I feel like when we are working ourselves very bad, there is some energy, a collective energy rising that opens up doors for other people to jump in too, as a collective conscious. That's why I try to work more on myself than try to help others, because I feel like the more I try to help others, the more reject has been. It's like, then what am I doing? Why am I really trying to teach my family about this? Look, you are in the position that you are because you do X, Y, and Z, but that's not gonna change for them. Like their consciousness doesn't get to, like, no, that doesn't make a lot of sense. My family fall asleep every time that I start talking. So like, okay, you just not interested. So it's just like everyone will learn what they are supposed to learn and accept it. You do the best for yourself, and that'll help them, believe it or not, and have empathy for where they are, even like their decisions are painful or create pain to others. It's probably like the pain that they are inside of themselves, getting out of it. So it's a good reminder to have compassion towards them. Yeah.
To watch someone you deeply care about and love in pain and suffering and feel like you can help them and you just cannot. And I agree with everything you just said, Ide. It's like, you nailed it. We can only be the best version of ourselves and be super compassionate and try to be there without being taken advantage of or abused or used whenever they're ready for it. But whatever experiences you had to make you learn those lessons that you just shared, they haven't had their version of that yet. So you just telling them, it's like handing them a piece of paper and they're like, well, what is that? That doesn't help. Like everyone, I was like, it's not my job to hijack someone else's karmic journey.
Exactly.
And I know that because I've tried a lot of times.
Right. You learn it that way.
A lot of my days, like when I try to help people, I'm like, how about when you try to force people to change? Because that's what I did so many times. Because you love them and you care about them. And by love, I just mean like you deeply want them to be happy, right? It could be a husband, it could be a sister, it could be a colleague. It's just like, damn, you just want people to not be in this suffering. But for some reason, that is their journey. And to be okay with not understanding why they're going through what they're going through. Oh, I have goosebumps. Like, and to let them be in the universe in their right expression and just be the positive energy. It's the only thing you can really do. Outside of that, they're going to be on their road.
Yeah, no, sorry, no, you want to say something. It was something that I had to went through like a huge period of pain. It was nobody on earth that could help me get out of it.
Yeah.
No one. Like it was no one I wanted to be around. I couldn't even hide it. Yeah. Something I needed to be alone with myself and heal. So if everyone has to go through that, which I don't know, but for me, I'm wired that way, that pain brings me, it opens door for me to heal. So I took it that way. I was like, okay, it's good. Yeah. It's actually good. I'm feeling this is making me see, look, this hurts. And like, you gotta work on this. So yeah.
Yeah, there's so many traps, there's so many spiritual traps, and it takes, I think, a degree of evolution, and it's a process to identify the traps and then stop falling into them, right? So for me, that's a big one, right? Trying to affect other people's journey in a way that usurps their journey. Like it takes away their capacity, or and it doesn't work. It backfires every time. And that's kind of the beautiful thing, right? Is there is all these fail safes built in to the design of this experience. So when you do overstep your bounds, it does backfire. So if you're paying attention, you can learn from that. It's the same it's the same thing. There was one other thing you were talking about that I wanted to mention about that. What was the other lesson? Oh, right, the sort of law of attraction stuff where I lost it again. Damn, I like this point, but anyways, there was something else I wanted to say that I'll mention. There's this, I heard an interesting interpretation recently of the Bible quote that says something like, and I'll probably get it a little bit wrong, but it's like, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to go to heaven, or something like that.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very famous. If I got it a little wrong, I apologize. But and going back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, Chiyoko, sort of about the material world, versus the spiritual world. Like if you put the amount of effort into your spiritual life as you did to accomplishing your goals. Mm-hmm. And I think, the interpretation that I was listening to about that Bible quote was saying, well, that it's not that wealthy, it's not literal, right? It's not that wealthy people can't experience bliss, go to heaven, whatever, accomplish their spiritual goals. It's that the attitude of someone who's chasing in the material world is never that attitude is going to stop them from evolving to the point to have that, to have that level of evolution, to go to heaven, or however, whether you view that as literal or a metaphor. And there's all these traps, right? Because it's very difficult, at least for me, but I think for everybody, it's very difficult to not get caught up in the physical. Like, if I do this, I get this, so let me go as hard as I can to get all the stuff I want. And then, of course, the most logical way to do that, which is the least effective in many ways because of the fail safes, is to do that in the most selfish way possible, right? Like I want to have a lot of money, so I'll do what I need to do to have a lot of money. Or I want to have, lots of girls, so I'll do what I need to do to have lots of girls, or whatever it is that you're chasing, you're trying to accomplish. But again, it has the fail safes built in, because as you go through that chasing and you realize that the chasing is actually not working, you might have some successes, but overall there isn't sustained success in terms of how you feel and what's happening. That you can learn, actually, if I give away, I get. Actually, if I really care deeply about other people, then I get the experiences back to me that fulfill me and make me feel good. So there is all of those sort of fail safes, what I would call as fail safes, built into the experience. So you don't have to become a selfish prick, which is very easy to do. I can speak from, but
that didn't work out. I don't understand.
No, it didn't
what
work
happened?
out.
Okay, all right. We're gonna refund on that experience. Got it. I totally agree with. I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and I love that term failsafe. Like, I've never used it for this, but it's so great because you're kind of like gamifying this whole system here, right? It's like eventually the formula won't add up. Like it'll default on itself, it'll collapse, and then you have to start again. And I think there's this illusion, and not only have I like fallen for it and I've been seduced into this illusion without realizing it, I still do it to this day about the money thing. Sure. And about like the happiness, and like there are some things I do want to buy, and what about this and that. And this is coming from a place of, that the word privilege is very subjective. What is privilege? And I just want to say, like, this is from our perspective, sitting here in front of, fancy cameras and stuff to do this. Like, we have a certain level of like capacity to say money doesn't buy that level of happiness that many people think is going to come if they get just the next level that they don't have. It is so commonplace to always look at that next level or the next 5 levels that you don't have, and only focus on to get there is going to get you something, usually that satisfaction, the house, the husband or wife or whatever. and to also just not realize, wow, how much do you have? And I feel like some of the richest things that we can do is appreciation for our life exactly as it is right now, exactly in the middle of the relationship breakup or the middle of the house construction not going the way you want it to, whatever the drama of your life is. It's like, wow, we still have so much from this place of privilege that we are right now of us, and everyone's at a different, place in life. But where I really do feel wherever you are, there's so much to be grateful for. And that trap and that illusion of like the chasing, so that when the person does get that senior vice president or CEO title or gets all the Series A funding for the thing, and then they realize they don't have that happiness, that was the illusion. That's the failsafe. It doesn't bring you what you really wanted. So there's two choices. You go back to square one, the drawing board, and say, why isn't this making me happy? And what do I actually need to do in my life? And maybe it is that silent retreat to get deeper and actually stop all the chaos of my busy working mind to go inward and do that self-development work. Or that's one path. The other one is like, let's just double down and keep going and work harder and work for the Series B, because then that's going to happen. Let me just get this divorce out of the way, and then I'll find the right person for me. It's like we constantly have these forks in the road. It's like either keep playing the Matrix game, thinking this illusion of money and material goods is going to get you this. And it really, for me, it's like it's a satisfaction, because happiness comes and goes. It's like, what is your satisfaction of a joyful life? You can either go that way of the chasing, or we can just pause and realize, wow, there's so much that we have right now. And from that place of gratitude, then start building. And it's okay to want and to dream and to hope and to work hard. I know I'm carrying on now, but like another thought in this topic is like, it doesn't mean don't care about anything in life. It doesn't mean don't try to make your business successful. Don't try to make your kids happy. It's like, you can deeply care and be so passionate. And I'm like this, like I work so hard for things that like light me up and inspire me. But if it doesn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, I'm going to be just fine. And the people I care about are going to be just fine. And that's what I really want. It's like, you know what? Let's just all be good to each other. That's all that matters. In the meantime, we can play the game and go for that Series A or Series B, as long as it's part of this like grounded perspective of like, my happiness doesn't lie in achieving that outcome. My happiness is continual, even if I don't get what I really thought it was working for. That's tricky.
Yeah, and I think the point of that, like I think the only point to have these carrots dangled that we chase is to learn through this experience, through life, that we're master creators. Like I think that's literally the point. And so then where it gets interesting is how do I accomplish X, Y, or Z? Whether that's a material goal, or whether that's happiness, or whether that's spiritual evolution, or just evolution. It's the how that is sort of, in my opinion, the key cards to kind of finishing with this experience, right? Is realizing some of those lessons, like, oh, I actually can accomplish this thing by being a joyful, kind, loving, giving person who doesn't put expectations on things and has a good vibe, has a high vibe all the time, and these kinds of things. That will actually allow me to accomplish that thing. And that's sort of the point of wanting to accomplish that thing, is the lesson. Oh, you're master creator. You create your own reality. If you do X, Y, and Z, it will work. The reason it will work is because you need to learn that lesson. Like that's part of Earth School, is understanding those lessons.
And we all signed up for this. Should we go there? Like somehow, we bought the ticket. I make this joke all the time. Like, I think I'm going to refund on my ticket. Like, this is just craziness. Like this whole being human thing, this whole going through life. Cause I agree with you. It's these lessons that we somehow need to have. And that's sometimes in like the darkest moments. And thanks for saying earlier, Jesse, like I am pretty grounded, but like, I know I've gotten in a tizzy, like even with both of you guys, cause we're friends, like shit comes up in life, and it's like, oh my gosh, why again? And I really anchor one of the many things, and maybe another podcast is what are the techniques and practices that we each have in these moments, or for our long-term, evolution. Like, what do we do day to day? What do we do in our hot, fiery moments? But one of like the mantras I chant to myself is like, when I'm just the most frustrated I can possibly be at something that's not going to how I expect it to, or I think I deserve. It's another topic, like what we think we deserve or entitled to. I mean, I chant mantra to myself, like, it's happening for a reason. it's happening for a reason. It's happening for a reason.
Yeah.
And the next part is, I don't understand it now. I might not ever understand it, but it is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's happened to me in hindsight. It might be a month, it might be a year, it might be 10 years. I'm not kidding. I have some experiences 10 years ago. I realized in Vilcabamba why they happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, I needed to have that that experience to be where I am now. I'm like, I can't believe that's kind of coming back in my life. And I only know this because of that thing from 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I wasn't saying, one day I'm going to leave New York City and move to a small town in Ecuador in the middle of the Andes Mountains that I've never heard of before. It's like, you don't know where all these experiences, I think it's training us up. It's training us up for the next stage of wherever this Earth evolution is going. So it's our spiritual Navy SEAL training that we're in here, suiting up.
I think that's about right. Well, we've got little kids we got to put to bed here shortly. Guys, if you enjoyed this content, please put a like on the video. We'd love to have you subscribe to the channel. Share this content as well with your friends. Let us know in the comments what topics you would like us to cover in the future. Yeah, thanks again for tuning in. See you guys soon.
Thank you guys. See you next time.
If you're interested in real estate properties, all of our property videos will now be uploaded on a different channel. Please click the link in the description down below.